If your tracks sound okay, but don't feel like finished records, the problem could be the way you're choosing sounds. Most producers pick the best sounding kick, the cleanest preset, the fattest bass. That feels logical, but it might be killing your momentum. So today I'm going to show you the framework that stops sound selection from holding back your tracks and helps you finish music that feels like you. This has worked for me over 20 years of producing and releasing actual records with tons of plays on big radio stations and by top DJs. So let's start with the problem, because this used to be me. Most producers choose sounds like they're getting dressed for a night out. They try on one shirt after another, trying to find the best shirt, and 20 minutes later they pick the same one that they always wear. In your DAW, same thing. You've got thousands of kicks, but in the search for the best kick, you end up wasting half an hour auditioning kicks and you lose the vibe. And that's why sound selection can feel stressful or even impossible, because you're stuck searching for the best sound instead of progressing. Just quickly, if you want more track finishing tips, my weekly newsletter is getting some awesome feedback from producers all around the globe. You can sign up for free, the link is below. So anyway, let's forget about the best sounds for a moment, because we want to select the right sounds with the goal of finishing a track. So to do this, I use something I call the forward method. This is a framework of 6 tips that push your tracks forward using sound selection alone. And all 6 tips have one singular goal: stop chasing perfection, start building momentum. So let's start with tip number 1. You know those times when you want dinner, your stomach's rumbling, but you don't know what to have? Well, that's exactly what it's like when you start a track from a blank slate with absolutely no direction. You fumble around aimlessly. But when you're hungry and you think, I fancy Italian food, suddenly possibilities appear. Pasta, meatballs, pizza. You still have choice, but you've given yourself constraints. And it's the same with music. For this track, my only idea was to make something garage inspired. It was vague, but it gave me a tempo and a guide for sounds to add. But your initial seed could be anything: a mood, an instrument, a sample, a preset, a painting. So that's the first tip, starting with a tiny seed of an idea, no matter what it is, no matter how small, gives you direction, because then you're not endlessly searching for the best sound. You're asking, what sounds do I need to fit my idea? Okay, let's move on to tip number 2. Chefs have this concept called mise en place. It means everything in its place. Ingredients are prepped and ready before service, so the cooking stays fluid. I used to do the opposite in my DAW. I'd get an idea, but then setting up all these tracks and groups and hunting for sounds would kill inspiration. So now I start with a bare bones template designed for fast sound selection. I've got kick and snare MIDI, each with 3 layers, preloaded and muted. This makes drum swapping super easy at any stage. And sidechaining is pre-routed, so I don't need to stop to think. I swap sounds and start writing. So tip 2 is to remove friction with a template. Set up whatever workflow makes sound selection fast and fun for you, because being able to audition and swap out sounds fast and in context is the key to unlocking all the steps we'll look at next. Just try not to get too complex, because a fully stacked template can feel restrictive and overwhelming if you're not careful. Okay, let's get into tip number 3. Remember how earlier I mentioned the search for good sounds can slow you down and stress you out? Well, here's what I do. Instead of focusing on quality, I choose sounds fast, based on what they do for the track, not whether they're objectively the best. For example, listen to the kick I used in this track. It's made up of one main kick sample, and then I've got this weird stereo layer slapped on top. So this kick is overclipped, it's thin, it's not a professional quality kick by most standards, but that roughness contrasts nicely against the cleaner hats and snares. And because it's kind of thin, it leaves room in the mix for the bass. It fits what I'm trying to do. And what's funny is me talking about this has taken so much longer than it actually took me to choose it. I found it fast, liked it, and I used it. So sometimes I use a bad sound with the character that I like. Sometimes it means using a clean sound. The point is to stop letting the search for best slow you down. So the third tip is this: be fearless and work fast. Choose quickly based on fit, not quality or ranking. And if it doesn't end up working, any sound can be changed, especially with a fast template. Making any decision and moving forward is better than indecision, and your choices and instincts improve with time and practice. Okay, let's move on to the fourth tip. This is another source of stress when making tracks. You spend ages finding the perfect kick. Then you add a snare and hats, and suddenly the kick doesn't feel right anymore, so you change the kick. But now the hats and snare are wrong, and you're stuck in this vicious cycle because you're choosing sounds without context. So here's the thing: my choice of distorted, rough kick came from the snappy snare I chose. Then my choice of hats were determined by the kick and snare together, and then bass was chosen to fit the drums, and then my choice of chords and effects responded to those, and so on. These sounds aren't mind-blowing in isolation. There are better sounds out there, but they work as a unit. So sound selection is a reactive process. Every sound choice influences every other sound. It's a fast feedback loop of listening, then making a decision, listening, decision, and so on. And when I'm making a track, I work fast to get every element in the project, even rough placeholders, because I need to hear everything together before I can start making the real decisions. Does this kick work with this snare? Does this bass fit with these drums? What do I need to swap out? So tip 4 is this: get all your sounds in fast, then make decisions based on context. That develops your reactive sound selection, and the big picture is what moves you forward. Okay, next, tip number 5. If you get stuck for which sounds to add next, or if the sounds you do add don't seem to fit, this tip will help with that. For this track, as I laid down more and more sounds, the overall vision and identity started unfolding. It became this skippy garage journey with floaty bits of beauty and minimalism. And because me and my wife have been watching Stranger Things, I wanted to add a sprinkle of retro analog to this world too. So there's this weird noisy lead. And these woozy CS80 chords that bring in some hope and optimism. And understanding this sonic world also helped me decide what sounds not to add. I wouldn't use thwacky EDM drums or fizzy digital FM synths because that wouldn't fit the world. I lent into this analog vibe, and now everything feels like it comes from the same place. So here's tip number 5. Build a sonic world for your sounds to live in. Once you have a vision, a direction, it's easier to choose sounds that keep that world building and evolving. You're not asking, is this a good synth to use? You're asking, does this synth fit the world I'm building? Alright, next it's tip number 6. Have you ever got to the point where everything sounds wrong and tweaking just makes it worse? Well, once you have all your sounds down and an arrangement laid out, you get to the point where you feel these diminishing returns kicking in. Once you recognise this, save and walk away. Export the track, then come back to it the next day with fresh ears. I showed my system for that in this video, which I'll link to below. This is the best way to judge what's needed to help your sounds fit, or to hear which sounds aren't working and need changing. For this track, I left it for a day, came back with fresh ears, and made a few nips and tucks that upgraded the track in less than 10 minutes. So here's tip number 6. Reset your perspective. come back the next day. By referencing with fresh ears and working through a to-do list, you'll make better sound decisions in 10 or 20 minutes of focus than in 3 hours of tired tweaking. So to use the forward method, simply work through all 6 tips as you make your next track. This will stop you asking, are these the best sounds to use? And you'll start asking, do these sounds move the track forward? That is the shift that helps you finish. Don't forget, I share free track finishing tips and insights that don't make it into videos via my weekly email, link below. And if you want to go deeper, watch this video next, where I show you how to start tracks you'll actually want to finish. I'll see you there.